Can you guys hear me? I can't hear anything.
I can hear you, Ali. Can you hear me?
All right, yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just Una. I can't hear you.
All right. I didn't know if it was me.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Do you know what happened? I'd moved my mic and it had come unplugged.
I still can't hear it.
There we go. Stephen, you're not on screen because we can't see you. So not sure what's going. There we go. We can see you now. Yay. Excellent. Okay. So apologies for a delay on everything. We're getting started with this. Welcome. I'll have to start again, won't I? So 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Marketing, Branding and Getting the Sale show. And we are joined with a special guest today, Ali, who's going to talk with us about words that sell, i.e. your copywriting, or at least she would be if she hadn't just disappeared. And here she is. Welcome back. This is the fun and the trials and tribulations of doing things live, but hey, it's all good. It's all good. Okay, so before we dive into Ali's advice, now please do let us know in the chat. I say, oh, good morning. We have hello from Wojciech. So welcome. Do put in the comments hashtag live if you're watching live, hashtag replay if you're watching later. Okay, it all works. And of course, when you watch live, you have the opportunity to ask questions. We are here at the same time every week talking on a different topic. So let's do some quick introductions and let's dive into today's topic. So Stephen, would you like to go first, followed by Jess, Ali, and then myself?
Good morning, everybody. My name's Stephen Lemon from Chameleon BDS. It's great to see you all. Great to be here. I do outsource business development, so cold calling, prospecting, and appointment setting. For those people that don't like to, don't want to, or have an aversion to picking up the telephone, I can do it all for you and get you in front of the people you want to see. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jess. Many of my clients come to me because, maybe feel like they're gambling, especially with the marketing. I help them build up the confidence to know exactly what they need to do and how to get noticed by more people and bring in more customers and bring in more sales. I do that through taking them through my 6-step brand loyalty process. So if you're intrigued at what that is and you want to see each step in action, then drop me a message or comment on this live and I'll send you a quick 3-minute video that explains the steps.
Great. Thank you. Ali, not hearing you, which is strange because when we did a sound check earlier, I could hear you fine. So do you want to go, if you go to the cog and and open that up and check your audio settings in there. So while Ali's doing that, I'll do my intro and then we'll try Ali again in a moment. Oh, was that you, Ali, or was that someone else? The noise. No. Okay. So my name is Una Doyle. I'm a business strategist and coach. I specialize in working with creative businesses and creatively minded business owners. And I can help any business to unlock at least 50K in only 50 minutes. If you want to know how, I have a video that shows the 5 steps that I use to do that with my clients. So DM me or comment below if you would like to get that video. Right. Let's come back to Ali. Ali, can we hear you? Okay, looks like she's frozen.
I was going to say we're struggling to see her now as well, aren't we?
No. Oh, and she's gone. I guess she's having some connection issues. So while we're waiting for Ali to come back, let's just have a talk about copywriting. So now, Stephen, for you as someone who's doing cold calling, are there other things going on around you that, where you may use copywriting? Like, is there kind of any LinkedIn messaging or emails or things like that that happen that, would involve copywriting in the way that you do things?
To be honest, I've never used copywriting in what I do. That's not to say that I couldn't or wouldn't or shouldn't. It's just the way I've set the business up and the way I've approached it thus far. I've never really got into that. I'm happy to have that conversation though, because I think there might be an avenue for me to explore at some point in the future as the business maybe diversifies slightly in what I offer and how I get people in front of people. So that is something that I'm willing to explore. But at this moment in time, I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something to look at because, the more points of contacts that there are, then the more you get to kind of have that relationship building, right?
Yep.
Ali,
Right,
can we hear you? Yay! Excellent. So we'll come back to that about the points of contact. But Ali, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm having a nightmare over here. I am Ali. I am a copywriter and content writer based here in Lancashire. And I work with people in 3 ways. I have people who outsource all of the content and copywriting to me, whether that's blogs, website copy or social media copy. And then I also do online content writing courses for small business owners. And I also do one-to-one coaching support for people who want to be doing it themselves but need a bit of one-to-one support.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Ali. And hello also, Olivia, who's joined us. Do please pop your comments in the chat. So we were talking about multiple points of contact there, Ali, as we were waiting for you to come back. Thank God we can hear you. So is that something that, like, how does that come into play in terms of your copywriting and what you would advise your clients?
In what respect? Sorry, because I didn't even hear any of that
Oh,
conversation.
beg your pardon. We were just talking about, I was asking Stephen, because he does outsourced appointment making, cold calling. I was asking, does copywriting come into the way he does his business in terms of maybe having emails going out before, after calls, LinkedIn messages, whatever. So yeah, I was just talking about the fact that the multiple points of contacts that it takes to move people along that journey, to become a buyer. So what's your point of view on that?
I think it starts further back than that. Obviously, like, how are people finding him in the first place? Because the copy is a really key part of that. Finding your website online or coming across you on social media and enjoying what you've got to say and sort of feeling connected with you in some way through the words that you use on your social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever else it might be. So yeah, I think the words that you use are important in every place you're using them, basically, whether it is an email campaign to existing customers or somebody landing on your website for the first time, not having a clue who you are, with loads of other websites they could have gone to. What's keeping them there?
Absolutely. And actually, I suppose the scripts, the conversation that, the words that you use in your conversations will actually be impacted as well, won't they, Stephen?
Well, to be honest, yes. I was just thinking about it as Ali was talking, and then as you raised a few points. Yes, the scripts are, because it's the key points, it's the key messaging that I want to get across. And I realize you've only got a very short period of time. It's like you've got to have as much impact as possible in a very short period of time. Like, I know when you're sending out emails, I think you've got 7 seconds, is it, on a subject line to find out, to engage with somebody, for them to want to click open your email before they click delete or move on to the next one. So it's got to be impactful, relevant, and I think poignant.
For sure. Ali, what would be the top 3 mistakes that you see people making when it comes to copywriting?
The first one is definitely just talking about themselves and not making it about the customer. And I see that so often, like landing on somebody's website and they're saying, we've been established for 20 years. We excel in doing this, X, Y, Z. It's so boring. And so many people do it. It's amazing how many times I go onto a website and it doesn't even have the word you on the homepage, and it's just not talking to the customer directly and saying anything that they want to hear. So it's that so what factor. Why are you telling me this? Maybe you've won an award, that's okay, but so what? What's it mean for me? So that's definitely the main one that I see. It's not such a kind of word-based one, but it kind of is as well. It just understanding the customer. For me, it's going back a stage and actually knowing who we're talking to, what they're going through, not just those basic details like gender, age, things that they're actually experiencing, what sort of point they're at. And when you know that, and even recognizing words that they actually use themselves, that's when you can start to use your own words and combine with their language to communicate with them in a really effective way. You asked me for 3, didn't you? And the third one is not using not sharing your own experiences in the way you're talking to people. So I think it's very easy for us to see businesses talking about what they can offer to us, but then a lot of time we sort of think, well, how can I trust you, and how are you qualified to talk about this? So for me, it's really important to use storytelling to communicate that you understand what they're going through, and this is why, and this is how you're the best person to help them. So I think that's a really important way of going about it.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think those are three really good points. And it is interesting, isn't it, how easy it is for people to slip into making those mistakes when they're not consciously aware of it, or where they don't have someone around them pointing it out. I mean, I see this a lot, when I have a first call with somebody, then, invariably I will go and have a look at their website, and at least their website, perhaps their social media, depending on what I see there. And a lot of the time, I'm not seeing that kind of 3-second rule of, can I land on your website and see, what problems you solve for who, and then see, can I, do I resonate with that? So great. So what would be some tips that you would like to share, Ali, in terms of how people can approach their copywriting and get better results?
I think that process of getting to know your customer is the most important place to start. So paying attention to understanding who it actually is, and using social media to have those actual conversations, especially for us as small businesses where we're interacting with people directly. We're not some managing director with a team that's doing all that for us. So actually just talking to people. So if somebody follows me on Instagram, I follow them back and send them a message to say hello and start a conversation. And straight away, I feel like I understand that person and I know how to talk to them, either in a private message or in a social media post. Then that sort of enables me to speak to them. When I feel like I'm writing a post for them directly, it becomes much more targeted and much more easy for other people to identify with it, if that makes sense. A lot of people feel like when they're writing social media content, they find it intimidating that they're sort of speaking to everybody and nobody at once. So I like to think of it as just that one person I've just had a conversation with, or the client that I've just worked with that morning. I sort of have that one person in mind who's in the same sort of demographic group. And then I find that if I picture myself talking to them, it's way more effective to other people as well, because people are going through similar things, aren't they, really?
They are. And I think there's also a much stronger emotional connection when you can picture one person.
Yeah.
It's just it's that thing about it. It actually makes me think of my acting days. And one thing I found really hard was doing monologues, okay? Because I often had to, in rehearsing, I would often be doing monologues because I would be rehearsing with myself. And I found that quite challenging, not having the energy of another person to bounce off. And so one of the things that I kind of actually brought into my business, in terms of when I make videos for my business, or when I'm writing, is just always having that one person in mind. And in videos, I actually would see that person on the other side of the camera lens, and so doing that allowed me to connect emotionally, and I think that's really important. So Jess, what's your views on what Ali has been saying with us so far?
What really stood out for me was storytelling, because I'm guilty of it sometimes as well, getting very practical in, okay, I need to get this across, I need to get that across, this is who I'm talking to, and I'm forgetting about that emotional storytelling side of it. I'm forgetting about bringing it to life. I'm quick to help people and quick to add value, but I'm not resonating with people as much as I should be before my post. So that's something that I'm reviewing at the minute with me and what I'm doing, and I'm working on ways to build that up a little bit more. But what tips do you have, Ali, for creating that story? You've got to start, a middle, and an end with a story, haven't you? How can someone that maybe has never done that before, or this is the first time they've heard this concept, how can they create a story within the message?
Yeah, so I think, there's a statistic actually. We remember stories 22 times more than facts and figures, apparently. So this is the power of storytelling. And it's true, isn't it? You can all relate a story that your mates told you yesterday in the pub, but can you remember some statistic that you read online? It's true that stories are really effective. So the way that I tend to go about that is to start with the pain point, identifying the pain point, and then sort of illustrating that in a scene that customers recognize. You did it perfectly, Jess, in your post on LinkedIn where you said, I can't remember word for word, but do you sit down and start writing something and feel frustrated, whatever it might have been, but suddenly you could picture yourself sitting at that laptop, feeling stressed out, feeling like you're never going to post that blog or whatever it might be. So start with that pain point to illustrate where they're at right now. So instantly the person reading it is thinking, yes, that is me. And they suddenly want to carry on reading to find out what you're going to tell them. So once you've got that pain point identified, then you sort of, you need to, so I've got things popping up on my screen, show that you understand, that you show empathy, show that you understand that situation because you've maybe been in it yourself or because you have customers that are in that state themselves. And so you understand what they're going through. Give examples, don't just say, I understand what you're going through. Demonstrate why, I understand what that's like because I used to sit down and start 10 different blogs and never post any of them. Then once you've established that this is the pain point, I've shown empathy, I've given an example of that, so you believe me, then you sort of invite them to hear what you've got to say. So then that's like, well, there is another way of doing this, and check out my tips to see how this will work. And then you've got the chance to introduce the solution to them, which might be, here are my 3 tips on how to write a blog that you'll actually publish. And then you can give your advice there and then finish it off with the call to action, and if you want to do more about this, if you don't want to know more about this, contact me. But you've then taken them through that whole journey where they've pictured themselves in the scene in the middle. Sorry, I've missed out a step. Towards the end of that, you then paint the dream scenario. So imagine sitting down to write a blog and you've got loads of ideas, but you're not feeling overwhelmed. You know exactly what you're going to talk about. Imagine just pressing post and getting on with your day. So sell them that dream, that where they want to be, and you'll know where they want to be from speaking to them. So then you can talk about actual outcomes that they want. So if you've spoken to someone who said, I just want to be able to press publish on my blog and then go and do the shopping or make my tea or whatever it might be, then say that. So say, imagine pressing publish and then getting on with your day, getting to Tesco and managing to do everything on your list before you pick up the kids or whatever it might be. But then see it selling that dream in a way that they recognize is really powerful, and then they're just going to completely trust you to do it. So I've waffled a bit there. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I even love some of the words that you've used to describe that. So like invite, for instance, inviting someone to the solution. I love that. I use that a lot with when I'm doing my own content. I think, right, okay, how can I invite people? And it just makes that, for me, it makes that feel a lot easier to want to offer a solution and not feel like you're maybe pushing or people don't want to hear. If you're thinking, I want to invite them to, to see what I can do, it's a nicer feeling, isn't it? So I love that word as well, and I love that you use that too.
And we don't like to be aggressive, and we don't like reading things that are aggressive, like, I'm the expert, here's all my advice. It's important as well to sort of call them out for it. So when you've painted that scene at the beginning where you're illustrating the struggle that they're going through, literally just say, does this sound like you? Is this a familiar scene to you? Because that's when you're almost forcing them to admit it to themselves. Yeah, that does sound like me. And you're also encouraging engagement, because if that's a blog or a social post, that's when they'll be prompted to comment, oh my God, this really did sound like me, because you've directly asked them the question.
Yeah, and I think as well, another point to make that it reminded me as you were saying that was it's bringing in that emotion, isn't it? And when people are recognizing an emotion and recognizing emotion within themselves when they're reading something, you're more you've got more urge to engage, haven't you? Because you want to give your opinion. You want to you want to let release what it's made you think, and just having that space to openly have a conversation about that. And like you said before, I loved as well when you was like, using social media to have conversations. That's the main thing that we're doing with social media. We're opening up room for conversation. And then that leads however it leads. But giving people space and an opportunity to do that is great advice as well.
Like in terms of emotions, I always talk about the fact that there's a pain point beneath the pain point. So often something that somebody's told you is the problem isn't the real problem. It's just sort of what they've felt is acceptable to say. So a lot of people say to me, oh, I don't write blogs for my business because I haven't got time. And time is an easy excuse to use. But then when you drill down into that and I say, well, why don't you have the time? It comes up that they lack a bit of confidence in the writing skills. They find it really overwhelming. They feel a bit insecure about coming across a certain way. So suddenly that's the actual pain point, and that's the real emotional side of the pain point. So if I put in a post, do you find that you don't have time to do your content? That's sort of like, yeah, maybe, but it's not going to really hit them in the feels. Whereas if I say, do you feel really insecure about your writing and lack confidence to put something out there, then suddenly that's really resonating with them, because that's what they actually feel deep down. So we have to do a bit of digging to get there sometimes.
I love that, and apologies if I look like I'm distracted. I'm typing all my notes. I'm typing in the comments as well, so everyone can see it too. But yeah, I'm soaking it all in, and I love that why. Why it's almost like the 5 why, isn't it? Why do they feel like that? Why is that happening? And really understanding that. So yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ali.
Brilliant. I've got a question, Ali, because like a lot of people will talk about adding value in your content. And I do believe that there's a kind of line of, how much value is enough, because you want to give enough value that people, they believe you're credible, they resonate with what you're saying, they can tell that you understand their problem, that you have the solution. So what's your advice for kind of finding where that line is? And, because we all want to make an impact in our business. So, and there's always going to be so many people who would never work from you, but actually can get helped by, consuming your content. Like, this is why we're here, right? This is why we're doing these every week. But I'm just curious as to what's your view on that. Because there's different types of content as well. So yeah, just talk a bit more about that.
Well, Olivia, who's joined us on the live, told me a while back you can't give away too much value, because I remember talking to her about being a bit concerned about sort of talking about all this stuff that I was going to be talking about on my course, and her advice was just, you can't give away too much value. And I really believe in that. I think I used to hold back a bit because I felt like, well, I want people to pay me for something, so I can't just tell them everything for free online. But now I'm of the opinion that because you can't ever rely on everybody seeing everything that you put out, and even if they do see everything that they put out, just accessing free advice online and then implementing it all in a really impactful way into your business is just really difficult. I don't think anybody really has the discipline to make that happen, to sort of note down and catalogue all the advice that they receive and then be sort of diligent enough to then go and put all those things into practice. I just don't think it happens. Maybe there's super motivated people out there that are really organised and do that, but I just don't think it works like that. So I find that most people just see a snapshot, and even if they've seen all the free stuff, all it's done is given them that reassurance. Maybe they'll start out trying to implement everything that you say. And I get a lot of people who say to me, oh, I'm just following your tips, I'm using all your advice and it's working well for me. But then they'll often get to the point where they're saying, I need a bit more support, I need that personalized advice, it's getting too much for me, I don't actually have enough hours in the day to write a blog every week or whatever it might be, so I need you to do that for me. And you're the first person I thought of because I know that you know exactly what you're talking about. So I think as long as you are putting out that free stuff and doing it in a way that's really supportive and nurturing, so people recognize you as somebody that they relate to and somebody that can help them, I don't think that can ever go against you. And I know, like you said, there's different ways of doing it. And I'm a big fan of repurposing content and using stuff in different ways. So I will use a blog to create like 12 social media posts. Then I'll go back and make a reel out of the same thing. I'll look at which post has done well on Instagram as like a graphic or a carousel, and I'll turn it into a reel. So I'll use everything in lots of different ways because people absorb information in different ways as well. Some people will only watch Instagram stories. Some people love reading blogs and taking that that time. So just giving them all those different ways to capture the information and use it however they're going to use it.
Great, thanks, Sally, and hello, Stuart. We're happy to have you here as well. I just want to ask you something. We're going to come to Stephen in a moment. He's got a question for you, and but I just want to hone in on one of the things that you said. You talked about turning a blog post into 12 pieces of content. Now, is that 12 pieces of content because you're tailoring it to different platforms, or are you talking about 12 different pieces of content?
12 for the price.
That's a lot from one blog. Is that like a really long, in-depth blog, or would that be?
I've got a client that I do this for quite regularly, actually. Like once a month, I'll write a blog and then turn it into, on average, 12 social media captions. I say 6 to 12 captions on average. It obviously depends on the length of the blog and the content of the blog. But I'm a big fan of doing that because I think a lot of people will spend time writing a blog and put all the hard work into it. And then they'll just put one post up saying, go read my blog, the links in the comments or the bio or whatever. And I feel like that's a wasted opportunity because you've got so much potential in that one piece of content that you can use in loads of other ways. So I would kind of break that blog down into as many different separate posts as possible, because I think on social media especially, it's really hard to absorb a lot of information when there's so much going on your feed. So sometimes if you see a graphic that's like 10 tips, you won't even read it because you just think, I don't have the time to read 10 tips. So 3 is way more digestible. So I would then break it down. So anywhere that I've got, say, some bullet points or different sections, headers, each of those would be a separate post. If there's a statistic in there, I'll use that as a separate post. Like, for example, did you know we remember stories 22 times more than facts and figures? That would be a social media post in itself, but it would just be like one sentence in a blog. But it's a really interesting way to start a conversation on social media and break things down on that minute level so that everything you've got in your blog can be accessible on different platforms in different ways and start those conversations. And then you save time, because not only is your blog out there, like getting your web leads, getting you higher up in the Google rankings, it's also getting you all these other things in all these different places. So you're really getting more bang for your buck that way, and you're optimizing the time that you spend sitting down to write something.
Absolutely. And I think that lends it, like, you know, if somebody could do even just one blog post a month and do that, you know, that's better than not doing anything at all, isn't it? So, well, Stuart's agreeing with you. So that's golden. As a video professional, we regularly were able to slice and dice content into multiple posts. A 3-minute corporate video is a treasure trove. So absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's interesting, like, you know, what you're saying, like 10 tips is 10 posts. You know what? I am so guilty of that. And I get very excited. I want to share things, and I have to be very careful not to be like a fire hose of information. Like when I do talks and things like that, I often kind of start off and then I go, no, we need to cut out about 2/3 of that content.
Then it's okay to go back on when you've done a 10 tips thing, and then just like pick out one and make a video of it and see how that performs, and then you're just going back to it. You can't think, well, everybody's seen this, so there's no point saying it again, because most people won't have seen it, and people don't even mind you repurposing and putting out the same content again if it's performed well. Everybody's out there doing that. There's no harm in doing that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a final thing before I come to Stephen and his next question is, you know, we were talking about the value and how much value to give. One of the things I realized last year is that I guess it's not just about, like, love to give and to help people, and doing those value posts are great, but there's other types of content that we need to be doing as well to actually engage people, to connect emotionally with them. And I found I guess because I love to share and to teach, that I did the vast majority of my posts were how-to posts. So I've actually changed up my content since then to have a lot more variety. And it's interesting, I've had a lot more people, like when I bump into them on networking events online or in person, whatever, like, oh, I've been checking out your content. You know, I get a lot more of those comments because I now have that variety of different types of things. So I think that's another thing perhaps to take into account as well. So Stephen, you've got a question for Ali.
Yes, Ali, hi. So how ruthless should you be when writing a piece? Because I know there's something to be said about being succinct in a header, in a subject line for trying to grab somebody's attention. But sometimes if we're trying to get a piece to a certain length, are we guilty of taking out the wrong bits? Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean in terms of trying to hit a certain word count, or?
Well, yes. I mean, there's no. I'm assuming there's no average number of words that you need to put in a piece, but somebody's attention span isn't that long. They've only got a certain amount of time to read something before they decide whether they want to pursue it further. I mean, so excuse me. So how do you know what words to leave out, what to while it still makes sense?
I would say don't worry about the actual length if you have a lot of value to share. I think it's more a question of making the format and structure of what you're writing really easy to digest, so that then if you've got, say if we're talking about a blog or even a social media post, if you've got lots of headers, if you've got lots of white space, really like short paragraphs, so people can everybody skim reads. We don't like to think about it when we're writing something, but we do it when we're reading stuff, so we have to accept that that's how people are going to consume it. But then if it's easy for them to skim down and just look at which headers appeal to them and which don't, it doesn't almost matter how long it is, because they'll just get the value that they want from it. I think we can sometimes get caught up. I did a post about this yesterday actually, about blog length, because everybody was asking me, what is the right blog length? Like, do you have to write a certain amount of words to rank on Google? But I don't want it to come across like too waffly. I think when you think that there is a perfect word count, that's when you're gonna sort of get too overwhelmed by trying to hit it and start waffling, or you're going to be too worried about it being shorter and get rid of valuable pieces of information. So I would just take all of that stress away, focus on the value that you've got to offer, focus on a really nice clean structure so people can skim down it, and then that's great for Google as well if you've got lots of headers, and Google can really understand what you're talking about. And then remember that you don't have to necessarily worry about everybody reading it, because then you've got all that content to use elsewhere as well, for the people that don't really enjoy sitting down and reading a full blog. So you've captured everybody in different ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks. I haven't seen your post, by the way.
No, that was a coincidence. I put something on LinkedIn yesterday about blog length, because I was doing my course last week, my online content course, and everybody kept asking, how long should a blog be? And I was like, why are you worried about that? But it seemed to be something that people were fixated on. You see a lot of statistics that I think overwhelm people, like it has to be over 2,000 words to be a top ranking post on Google, or has to be 1,500 words to get shared on social media. But all of that stuff just stresses us out. So I think as long as you focus on value and making it really interesting to your target customer, just don't worry about the rest.
Thank you.
Great, that makes lots of sense. Ali, thank you. What would be one final tip that you'd like to share with our viewers today?
I think it would be something to do with probably your own tone of voice. So making sure that you have thought about what your brand tone of voice is, something that we don't often do maybe as sort of solo traders, because it's something that we associate with bigger businesses. But if you take the time to think about your brand values, think of 3 to 5 brand values, things that you stand for, and then 3 to 5 adjectives to describe your own tone of voice. For example, mine are, I wrote them down, casual, friendly, reassuring, and respectful. So that's what I'm always trying to be when I put something out on social media. But when I've sort of got that in my mind as that's what I'm all about, and then I can combine that with my customer words that I know my customers use and like, then that becomes my brand voice. So if you've got that in your mind, you'll always come across distinctly you, and that's when people will connect with you and what you're saying and recognize you as somebody that stands out in quite a crowded space, and somebody that they really personally relate to, which I think is a big part of selling ourselves as a business.
Great point. Jess, I'm sure you got something to add to that with the word brand being mentioned.
Yeah, it comes back to make sure you've got them foundations, doesn't it? Like, as business owners, we're all quick to, jump and get excited to do something, get out there, get in front of people, and not only defining, and creating your brand voice, but keep checking in with that, keep talking to your customers. We had a conversation about this recently, didn't we, Ali? Keep talking to people, keep updating what you want to stand for and what you want to be seen as, and don't see, you know, these exercises as, okay, well, I did that when I started out with the business and I'm 3 years down the line now and I've not looked back at it. You know, don't let it all collect dust and just sit there stale, if you will. Keep reviewing it, keep looking at it, and keep checking in, because that's going to keep you relevant as well. You know, the things change so quickly, don't they? You know, your competition can, you know, get ahead of the game, and it, you know, only takes that, you know, that split second for you to fall behind. So, you know, keeping up with that sort of activities will prevent that from happening. I also encourage as well, for anyone that has not seen Ali before or met Ali before, follow her on her social. She gives away some amazing stuff, and have a chat with her, because just hearing your story, Ali, on how your content has changed your business is a really good one as well. So I encourage people to reach out to you to have a conversation with you about that.
Yeah, thank you. Come and have a chat.
Absolutely. And Marek is saying thank you very much, everyone, as well, for creating this time and space and very helpful information. Well, you are very welcome, Marek. So lots of great tips there. They're in many of the comments across Facebook and LinkedIn, and obviously they were popping up through the video. So if you need to, you can go back. I don't know if you know, but you can actually go back and replay this. And so I think you can change the speed and scroll along, so you can kind of stop at various tips, make notes. You know, this is something that has been very valuable for you. So thank you, Jess and Stephen, as always, for being here today. And thank you, Ali, for joining us. Just very quickly, just want to do a quick roundup of like what's been the most significant thing for you out of our conversation. So I'll go first. I think for me is that the stories, I knew stories were really powerful, but I hadn't heard that statistic about them being 22 times more powerful in terms of how effective they are in communication. So that was a big one for me. Jess, what about you?
Storytelling as well for me. You know, keeping in with that emotional trigger and them emotional pulls. I also love the pain point beneath the pain point as well. You know, keep digging. I like that one.
Great stuff. Stephen, what jumped out at you the most?
It's the mistake that you mentioned at the very beginning, Ali. All me, no you. It's so true. People think that's what that clients, potential prospects want to hear. It's not. You know, it makes no difference to their lives, does it?
It's that so what factor, isn't it?
Yep. Definitely. Yes, absolutely. So fabulous. Thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you for joining us. Do come back this time next week. We're just confirming our person next week. We think is going to be around investing, perhaps like how to make your business more investable, or if you want to be able to sell it. So slightly broader topic. So we just need to confirm that. If not, we will let you know over the next day or so. Keep an eye out on our feeds. So do please connect with there's been a lot of great value here today. Do please connect with Ali and us and reach out to whoever has said whatever resonates with you the most, or whoever you feel can help you the most in your business journey. Ali, thank you again for joining us here today, and we will say goodbye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye.